Borky and Brian Haydad, thanks for being with us on this Wednesday afternoon. We are 9 days away from the start of the college baseball season. Got to visit with Mike Bianco a little bit earlier today. We touched on a ton of different things. Here's part one of the conversation that we had earlier today.
So it is almost time for the start of a new college baseball season, less than a week and a half away at this point. Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Arkansas from the SEC, all beginning things in Arlington, Texas. Let's just start there. Mike Bianco, head baseball coach at Ole Miss, joins us. This tournament, D1 Baseball preseason poll, all 6 teams in the tournament, preseason top 10. I've asked a bunch of people this. Has there ever been an event to start a season quite like this? And guys like Kendall Rogers and Aaron Fitt and Eric Sorensen, everybody's like, not that I can remember.
Yeah, and I think that would be my answer as well. I think it's always going to be a great event when you put 2 big conferences together. But how it turns out, it's the first weekend of the season, and then obviously everybody is in a position where they played well last year for that abbreviated season, return a lot of players, and a lot of expectations for all 6 programs.
This is the longest gap that there's ever been between end of season and start of a new season. Maybe since, I don't know, maybe they did it differently in the 50s, but certainly in recent college baseball. Does that have an effect, especially given the fact that not as many guys played summer ball this year?
I think that's to be determined. I think that might be the reason or excuses you hear that hey, we're just trying to get used to things. But we've tried to do. Everybody's in the same boat. And everybody's in the same situation. It's been an awful situation, and we've all dealt with it in our own lives, not just baseball, not just football, but everybody in their everyday life. And but from our standpoint, we've had a few play summer ball, but the biggest thing was to get them back here on campus in the fall. One of the pluses was guys like Nikhazy and Hoagland, guys that, your star pitchers were able to pitch the entire fall, where a lot of years, as because of their workload in the spring, or maybe they pitched in the Cape, or maybe they pitched on the USA national team, they either didn't pitch at all in the fall or only pitched in a little, spurt of action. And so that was one of the goals, is not only to let them log some innings, let them kind of extend themselves, which we normally wouldn't do in the fall, but also get the at-bats for the position players. And I thought, the staff did a great job, and we played more innings, got more at-bats this fall than any fall that we've ever played. So, we've done just about everything that we could. Then the other part is that you have this COVID roster. So, and even though I don't think we're way over the number, I think we probably have 39 or 40 eligible guys that can actually play on the field, which is not much different than 35. Really, where you see the differences in the pitching. So more innings, more innings being thrown every week, even as in the 3 weeks leading up to the season. So again, even though we've missed a lot of baseball, they've played a lot of baseball over the last 6 months.
Does that give you more of an opportunity for development than you would in a normal fall campaign?
Not just development, but I think that's the obvious. That they're going to get at bats. But one of the things that I think always kind of bothered me, or I've noticed, or I've worried about, is the evaluation, because they lost that year. So it's hard to watch a freshman like Chatagnier. How much did he grow over his freshman year? He only had 17 games. How much did a kid that maybe didn't get off to the start like Peyton did, that it was a freshman that may have played well at the end of the year but never got the opportunity because the season was cut short? And so those are the things that kind of bother me. And not just freshmen. I think we always look to the obvious, but remember, there's guys that, mature in their baseball skills at different times. You look in the past at a guy like Sykes Orvis, where he didn't do much his first 2 years, but his last 2 years, boy, did he make up for it. I mean, he played so well. Well, where are those guys? You know, where are the guys where maybe last year would have been that big year for them? And one of them's Tim Elko. You know, one of them that, you know, Tim's first 2 years, you know, he was a part-time player, a guy that's had a lot of expectations and has had some really good games, but never really put together a great year for us. But as we look at Tim Elko, we look at, you know, one of the best, you know, third basemen, not only in the SEC, but in the country, and a guy that's put together 2 great years. Unfortunately, Ole Miss fans have only seen it for 16 or 17 games because, you know, we've watched him have back-to-back great falls, back-to-back great summers in the Northwoods League. A really good 16-game stretch last year where he hit about 350, hit 4 home runs. But that's all our fans see. So when you look back at his bio, right, in the media guide or, you know, the stat page from Ole Miss, it's probably not as reflective of what we think, you know, Tim Elko's going to do.
Over the course of 20 years and a couple of hundred interviews, it's hard to come up with new questions for you, but I think you may have taken me down the road on something. So, you were talking about maturation, development, baseball skills growing. What's the balance between a guy just gets older and gets stronger and therefore gets better versus you, Carl, and Clem, maybe a private instructor helping the development process? Teaching, I mean, how much coaching and teaching is there at this level versus natural growth and ability?
Well, I think there's a ton. But, you know, one of the things that we've always said is, you know, we don't have the magic wand. You know, if we did, everybody would hit 350, you know, everybody would throw 95 or have a good breaking ball. And I think that's the neat things about athletics. I mean, you can go to the golf course and take a lesson and you can improve, you know, your drive or, your short irons, but you're not going to do it like Tiger Woods, right? You're not going to be able to do those things. We don't know, you know, it's hard to quantify, you know, those gains, but I think what's neat in our sport that makes it different and because I know a lot of fans, they're fans, you know, they're fans of football, they're fans of basketball, they play golf, they understand those games and they understand our games, but your question's a little deeper because it's not just, you know, did a guy pick up a breaking ball? You know, and sometimes that's the difference. You know, did that guy clean up some of his pitching mechanics where his location and his command's a little bit better? Did that guy have a little bit better two-strike approach? Or was it gains in the weight room where physically, he's just become, you know, a better athlete. He's faster. He's stronger now. Mother Nature. You know, where, you know, God just, you know, allowed him to get bigger and stronger and put on 10 pounds. You know, some of that happens in a weight room. Some of that combines with the weight room. Remember, we have these kids at an age at 18 to 22 years old where, you know, they're still growing, you know, and even if they weren't here, they would be getting bigger. But another factor that people don't talk about is just the confidence. You know, just feeling, I think, more comfortable in the environment and when are they ready to make that jump and why some guys can do it as freshmen, some guys do it as sophomores, some guys do it as juniors or seniors, and some guys never do it. You know, and sometimes it's, you know, you hear about the mental game, you know, and how much those things matter. They really do. Not just in our sport, but I think it's hard, again, another thing that's hard to quantify and say, you know, this is where it happens, because I think that maturation happens at different times for different players.
I guess holding up a trophy maybe is the most fun thing you do, but I'm curious if the most rewarding thing is kind of along these lines, seeing a player develop from the day they first step on campus to the day that they end up being drafted in the third round.
No doubt. No doubt. It's to watch their growth and sometimes not just on the field, you know, to be honest, you know, to watch a kid that when he came in, he was a nervous, scared freshman. And then all of a sudden he walks into, you know, a team meeting as a junior and you look at him and go, man, boy, has he changed, you know, just, you know, how much more confidence he has and how he speaks, how he carries himself. That's why you come to college, you know, and I think that's a huge part of it. But you're right. I mean, to watch kids grow, to watch kids improve, to watch kids, you know, reach, you know, their goals and their dreams is pretty neat.
So that's part one of our conversation with Mike Bianco, the head baseball coach at Ole Miss. Rebels begin their season a week from Friday, when they will be part of the college baseball showdown at Globe Life Field. Of course, Mississippi State will be there, as will Arkansas on the SEC side of things. On the Big 12 side, it's TCU, Texas Tech, and the Texas Longhorns. We've got more coming up with Mike Bianco. We'll take a quick time out and then continue with you. This is Sports Talk Mississippi, streaming online at supertalk.fm and, of course, on your local SuperTalk affiliates. FM, we are, as always, glad to have you along. Richard Cross, Michael Borky, and Brian Haydad. You just heard part one of our conversation with Mike Bianco. We will continue that right now. You look at the preseason polls, you've got Ole Miss in the D1 baseball top 25, ranked at number 6, Mississippi State ranked at number 7, Arkansas at number 8. That's part of the reason that there's so much hype for this tournament, and that's where we go next with Mike Bianco, talking about expectations.
All right, so you're going to tell me this is one of those stupid media questions, so forgive me on that. But expectations going into the year, because you were 16-1 a year ago, because the entire rotation's coming back. Yeah, you lost 2 guys, top 5 rounds in the draft, but bunch of position players, bunch of experience back. Is this the biggest year in terms of preseason expectations, whether it's outside the program or inside the program, in your tenure here?
I don't know.
See, I saw you do that little thing where you cut your eyes.
And I don't know how you can answer that. I think, those are great radio questions. Who's better, LeBron or Michael Jordan? Who's a better quarterback, Manning or Brady? I don't know. I don't think we look, and I think the reason it's hard for coaches is because we don't look at it that way. I mean, it's great for conversation. I would think it'd be rivaled by maybe the 05 team that after 04, although we lost, Seth Smith and, some other really good players, that 05 team returned a ton of players and, they were really good. I don't think it's all of that, though. But, the expectations certainly are, as high as they've been or ever been. Top 5, I think we return a lot of players, and that's the reason it's people ask you all the time about, preseason polls. And usually what pushes them the most is how much success did you have the year before and how many of those guys you got returning. People may not know much about the players. They just know, hey, you return a lot of the guys from last year and you guys were pretty good. It's not like, I don't think, this is not trying to slight the reporting because it's really from a national, it's not here in the Southeast because our coverage is great, but nationally, people just don't know enough about the players. Where in football and basketball, they tend to know a lot more about them nationally. Who Cincinnati's point guard is, or, who, the University, of Connecticut center is, people don't know that as much, in baseball. And so I think, you kind of got to take it with a grain of salt. You can't just stick your chest out when you're preseason ranked and when you're not as high and you're 18, act like it doesn't matter as much. But I will tell you as a coach, you don't hear from a coach every day. It's nice. It's nice to be recognized. It's nice for people to, so people say it doesn't matter. It may not matter, in the first game when we throw the first pitch. I know it doesn't matter that way, but, weeks leading up to it, I think it matters to us. Our fans are excited. Our administration's excited. It's part of the reason that, we sell so many tickets and we have the stadium that we play in and the facilities. Those expectations, those polls, I think drive that a lot. And, anybody that says they don't is probably lying.
Do you notice a difference in your team when you kind of watch them going through off-season workouts, whether it's fall camp or leading up to the start of the spring, when they know they're good?
Yeah, and that's what you hope for. You hope that they have that swagger, that confidence, not arrogance, but the confidence, like anything that you do, if you do it confidently, if you do it with belief, you usually do it better. if you're the interviewer, right? I mean, you can probably tell in your profession, guys that are good, have some confidence. Guys that are nervous and unsure, it's probably doesn't lead itself to a good interview. Well, that's like that in anything. And so, we look for that. We look for guys not only when they get hits and have success on the field, but how do they handle the adversity, the tough times? Because we know in our game that's going to happen, right? There's going to be times this year where we're not at our best, that we don't play our best, or certainly the results don't go our way. Can we handle that? Will we be able to handle the tough times? And if you can do that, usually what pulls you through that is the confidence. So we look for that a lot. This team has it, at least what you can see and judge to this point. One of the things that's unique about this team is just the energy that they come with every single day. Like, they like playing. They like competing. They like being around one another, and that's hard to kind of put together and formulate.
It's interesting that you say that, because one of the things I think we talked about after the season abruptly came to an end last year was you liked the chemistry. It looked like this group had fun, and I seem to remember you telling me that you can't always replicate that, but you see that it looks like the same personality from the group you had a year ago?
Yes, and let's not forget that, I got that a lot last year, and this is just being as candid and as honest as I can. It's easy to look like you're having fun when you win 16 in a row, right? So you win the one-run games, you win, the blowouts, and, a lot of balls bounced our way, through those 16 games. Now, not that, the players didn't play well and they don't deserve a lot of credit, but it was a small snapshot of the season. But they do. There's guys, there's personalities out there that really, when you look at guys like Nikhazy and, Chatinier and others, and, that just play with an energy and a passion and an excitement, it's fun to be around.
What do you think it's going to feel like this year? And I guess maybe we should jump to week 2, because week 1 is going to be unique in that they've opened it up to 15,000 or so tickets, and there's going to be a lot of buzz. I don't know game by game what the attendance is going to be like.
Right.
But when you get back home for week 2, is that UCF? And I can't remember.
We got Arkansas State on that Tuesday, and then UCF Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So another, some real good opponents as well. As soon as we get back into our stadium.
So what's it going to feel like when UCF rolls in Friday night, Saturday afternoon?
I think I hope that it'll feel about as normal as it can. We were talking off the air about, the attendance. One of the things is that, my hope is, that may come from if you want to look at the silver lining, that even though we're at 25%, there's a lot of times in those midweek games or those non-conference games that, we struggle to get 25% of a normal crowd and the normal SEC crowd. And, I think we'll have some good crowds, because I think that 25% will show up. Those, whatever seats are sold, I think those people will show up or make them, available, hand them off to friends, or, that, and I think there'll be an excitement. I think people, as you mentioned earlier, I think people are excited about baseball. We know we're excited, and, I know we can't wait. We open up in Arlington. It's going to be a big weekend, and but different, as you mentioned, on the road. But it's going to be great to be back at Swayze.
Have you heard from a bunch of people, hey, I'm going to Texas?
I don't talk to a lot of people, but I have heard, people mentioned, and people that, that I don't normally hear from, and people saying that we're going there. I think it's a neat trip on a lot of different levels.
Wouldn't it be cool? You roll out at 3:00 on Friday afternoon. You're 8 hours from Oxford, and that first time you take the field, you kind of look around and it's like, wow, there are a couple of thousand Ole Miss fans here.
Yeah, and I think that's very well may happen. And when you think of, if you're looking to take a trip, one, if you can get the tickets, you can go online. It's probably a little easier ticket to get than some of the other venues that will play on the road. Number two, they're going to play, 3 really good teams. You're going to play in a dome, so you're getting
it's going to be 72 and sunny every day.
Exactly, and the way the weather looks here next week, maybe that was some really smart scheduling. I've been scratching my head about the scheduling, up until maybe I saw the weather report. But I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and I agree. I think we're going to have a lot of Ole Miss fans there.
New rules, new funds, same trusted PPP team. Trustmark, an SBA preferred lender, is now providing small business loans through the Paycheck Protection Program. Learn more at trustmark.com/PPP. Member FDIC. I am curious, as we were talking about fans in the stands, whether you're an Ole Miss baseball fan or a Mississippi State baseball fan. Are you going to Arlington? Are you excited about it if you're going? Send us a message on the C Spire text line, 601-879-4395. A very informal roll call in terms of whether or not you're headed to Arlington for baseball a week from Friday. That's 2 of the 3 parts of our interview with Mike Bianco. He talks more when we come back about the makeup of this 2021 team, what the lineup's going to look like, what they're going to look like offensively, and then that pitching rotation that's been talked about so much. That's when we come back on Sun Messages. Got a bunch of people responding that they are headed to Dallas, Arlington for the opening weekend. Mike has told us he's going. Here's one that says 3 of us from the 1977 Ole Miss team will be there. Brian said he's give his left arm to go. Bradley in South Haven says he and his wife are meeting another couple. Rusty said he's going that way. Got a group that says, hey, when we heard you guys talk about this a couple of weeks back, 10 of us booked a trip. We're leaving from Hernando. Billy in Caledonia says he and his son are going, said he went to Mississippi State. His son is going to Ole Miss, and this is their first legit boys trip. So very, very cool. All right, part 3 of the conversation with Mike Bianco from earlier today. Head baseball coach of the Rebels talks about the makeup of this particular team.
You mentioned a second ago, or a few minutes ago when we were talking, familiar faces, familiar names, and yet a couple of guys. We know Keenan's gone. We know Servidio's gone. Aside from that, most everybody is back. So let's start on the offensive side of things, offensive/position players. What is the makeup? What's the DNA of what you've seen kind of leading up toward the start of the season?
From an offensive standpoint? Yeah. I think without getting too technical, I think this is a very physical team, a very offensive team. We probably don't quite have the speed as some of the teams that we've had in the past, and not that we're ever known as a running team, but we'll probably have less runners in the lineup. But I think we'll have enough. I think we'll have enough to steal some bases, but I think this team can really hit. I think we have a good mix of right-left, to match up with other pitching staffs that, want to go back and forth. I certainly think, as I mentioned and started, this is a physical team. I think we'll hit home runs. We're going to score runs.
There. I know gorilla ball of 92, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever it was at LSU, will never be replicated. But were you on pace to as close as you can get to that a year ago? Or is it different?
Yeah. I don't know about that. I mean, we were on pace to hit over 100 home runs, and we've never done that here. But again, I think it's just hard. It's hard to gauge just because non-conference, but I don't want to take away from what those kids and how they played. So it's just hard. It's, I think like everything with the pandemic, it's just hard. It's hard to gauge and judge, and, there'll always be the haters and go, well, you haven't even started SEC play. And that's true, but we did play the number 1 team in the country. And they were no fluke, because I think when it all ended, they were the number 2 team in the country. We did go to, East Carolina and play, a top 10 or 15 team in East Carolina, another, I think, top 25 team in Indiana. We played a good schedule in those, 16, 17 games. But, this team, I think, even minus, Servideo and Keenan, have a chance to hit a lot of home runs.
What about on the mound?
On the mound, I can't remember, and I'm sure there was a time, but I can't remember a time that we returned all three starters. And that always helps. But not only to return the top, the top three guys, but also when you look at the bullpen and the pieces, guys like Broadway and Forsythe and Chofie and Miller, and veteran guys. That's, I think when you look at this team, it's easy to point to the pitching, first, just because you return Nikhazy and Hoagland and Diamond, along with the bullpen members. We like where we are. We like our depth. We like that we can match up, with anybody on the weekend as far as three starters. And usually when you can pitch, you can win some games.
And we were talking about development earlier. Anything that stands out in you from where you finished mid-March a year ago to where you are going into this season from Nikhazy, Hoagland, Diamond in terms of starters?
Probably Derek is probably the toughest one to judge that, just because we held him out all fall. He had a kind of a weird. He went and played summer ball. He had I think one start, maybe two starts. He came down with an elbow injury, really forearm flexor muscle, and it's in a delicate spot because it's close to the UCL, and so we just tried to be as cautious as we could with him. So he really didn't pitch this fall. He threw at the end and in the bullpen and did some controlled scrimmages, threw great. The good news about Derek, his velocity continues to rise. And, last year his average fastball was the fastest of the three starters. And it's continued to rise, even, into the last game. Gunner's velocity has continued to increase. He's been up to as high as, 94, 95, just about every outing. He, is, averaging somewhere in the 91 to 93 range. But the difference maker for, Gunner last year was picking up the slider. He's really improved. His breaking ball went more from a traditional 12-6 curveball. He still has that, but really his go-to pitch is his slider, which is a swing and miss, which really made a difference for him last year. Nikhazy, on the other hand, has always thrown four pitches, but I think even him, one of the things that he wanted to improve on, and he did last year, we just didn't get to see it much because it was such a small snapshot, was the way he could handle left-handed hitters. As good as he was, I think after, his freshman year, you would want him to be better against left-handed hitters. And, his numbers were better against right-handed hitters. Last year that flipped a little bit, and that was good. And most of that's due to, not picking up a slider, but improving his slider and his slider location, that's made him, I think, more of a well-rounded pitcher.
When you look across the SEC, your rotation, really, really good. Mm-hmm. Mississippi State's rotation, really good. The thought is that LSU is probably going to be better. Florida may have 3 first-rounders in their rotation. And you can kind of do that all over the SEC. Is anybody going to be able to hit in the league this year?
Well, I know our pitchers will be excited to pitch against somebody besides our lineup because, as well as we think we pitch, we struggle with our lineup. And, some of it may be just they've seen Doug so much, they've seen Gunner so much, they've seen those guys. You look at guys like Kevin Graham and how many years he's hit against those guys. You don't get that luxury. In our league, you may have seen a guy once, maybe. You look at like a Tommy Mace from Florida. I mean, he pitched against our guys 2 years ago. Like I don't know if they remember him that well. Yeah. And so it's harder from that standpoint. But I think we're pretty confident we'll be able to swing it. And I'm sure some other teams think they can swing it as well.
You get in trouble when you start naming staffs because then you leave somebody out like Vanderbilt with Kumar Rocker.
Well, I noticed that you left them out, but that's all right. We talk about them enough. They're real good, and they're real good again this year.
Yeah. In terms of the West, I mean, you kind of stack it up 1 through 7. Arkansas's preseason top 10, Mississippi State's preseason top 10. Alabama, I think, was 16-1 when it shut down last year. Butch is 2 years removed from
Right.
going to the College World Series. A&M, they always seem to load up with power. Is there any way to predict the West, or what's the differentiator between teams?
It's one of those things that I think it's great talk. I think it's great for the fans. I think it's great for the media. There's just no way, I think, for us to figure it out. I always laughed with the schedule. We played 10 opponents, and so there's 3 opponents that we don't play. I don't think I'd want to choose. I think if you said, hey, you get to choose, I'd say, nah, you just give us 10, whoever we don't play. You look at this year, we on the other side, we play Vandy, we play Florida, we play Georgia, we play South Carolina. But in our league, it has more to do. Everybody, one of the beauties and maybe the curses of the Southeastern Conference is 1 through 14, we are the best league. If we don't have the best team in the country in our league, we're going to have, the second or third best, team. But where we're so good as a league is our 11th team can beat you. Our 13th team can beat the number 1 team, in the country and in our league, and can beat them in their ballpark. And so to me, it matters more. This is getting back to your question, how well you played that weekend. If you don't play well in our league, you lose. I don't care who you are, where you're ranked. That matters less in our league. And what matters the most is how well you're playing at that time. Injuries, or guys, throwing it well, or they pitching it well, hitting it well. To me, that's why it's just so hard to predict or try to figure it out.
That was Mike Bianco, Ole Miss